On the S-400 radar screen, faint points of light flickered in and out, buried beneath heavy layers of electronic noise. Within only a few dozen seconds, the entire air defense network shifted into full alert as reports of a possible formation of F-35. Adir jets began moving through the command system. The question was simple but unsettling. What would happen if the F-35 Adir jets truly managed to slip through the defensive layers? As tensions between Israel and Iran intensified over the sensitive strategic program and a chain of confrontations involving regional allied groups, Tehran quickly placed its protected zones on the highest operational readiness. Around Natanz, Fordo, and key areas near Tehran, Bavar 373 mobile launch units rolled out from their shelters, spreading into layered defensive rings to prepare for a possible aerial operation. The Bavar 373 is considered Iran's most advanced long-range air defense system developed on its own. It was introduced after sanctions and delays affected the delivery of the S-300P Mu-2 system from Russia. Tehran has often claimed that the Bavar 373 can match, and in certain cases even outperform, some versions of the S-300. Each battery includes a Mirage 4-phased array radar, a command vehicle, and launcher vehicles carrying Sayed 4B interceptors, which Iran says can reach beyond 300 kilometers. The radar is designed to detect and track several targets at once, while the entire system is mounted on mobile platforms so it can quickly change position after firing. One could picture the Bavar 373 as a steel giant with radar eyes searching the sky and interceptor claws waiting for the order to move. Iran has even claimed that this system can challenge stealth aircraft such as the F-35. But one major question still hangs in the air. Can Iran's strongest shield truly spot an aircraft built to almost disappear from radar view? That is the confrontation about to unfold. Only minutes after Iran placed its air defense network on alert, 8 Delilah cruise projectiles suddenly appeared on radar, approaching from 4 different directions. Their paths kept shifting, changing altitude and direction again and again, making it difficult for the crews to identify the main route of the operation. Command headquarters quickly ordered 3 Bavar 373 batteries to increase the output of their Mirage 4 radars and prepare to respond. Waves of electromagnetic energy swept across the sky like countless searchlights trying to cut through dense fog. But the more powerfully they scanned, the more clearly their own positions appeared within the electromagnetic spectrum. Determined not to let any target pass, the Iranian batteries released nearly 12 Sayed 4B interceptors. Bright trails tore across the night sky as they raced toward the Delilah decoys, which continued splitting in different directions while moving toward Natanz and Fordo. Within minutes, the entire defense network had been pulled into chasing the decoys. And at that exact moment, far from the center of attention, 4 F-35 Adir aircraft split into 2 groups and quietly entered Iranian airspace. They maintained radio silence, kept their radars off, and carried all equipment inside enclosed bays to preserve their stealth profile. Through sensor fusion combined with DAS and EOTS, each signal coming from the Mirage 4 radars began appearing one after another on the pilot's tactical displays. Iran believed it was controlling the sky. But in reality, every time the Mirage 4 sent out a signal, it unintentionally became a beacon pointing the F-35s toward its location. Within only a few minutes, the locations of every Bavar 373 battery had been identified. Once the coordinates were confirmed, the F-35 Adir formation transferred the target data to the 8 Delilah drones still operating ahead of them. In an instant, the Delilahs changed their role. They were no longer simply acting as distractions. They adjusted course during the final phase and moved directly toward the Mirage 4 radars that had just exposed their own positions. By continuously transmitting signals to track targets, the radars had unintentionally become bright markers across the electronic battlefield. This allowed the Delilahs to focus on each battery with accuracy, without losing extra time searching for them. 2 Mirage 4 radars were neutralized almost at the same time, while the remaining radar was forced to switch off immediately to avoid becoming the next target. The surveillance network, once compared to a steel net stretched across the sky, now began to show its first openings. Those openings quickly weakened the ability of the Bavar 373 batteries to share data with one another. Tracking targets was no longer as smooth or coordinated as before. As Iran noticed its ground-based radar stations going silent one after another, 4 F-14 Tomcats were sent into the air to restore wide-area surveillance. The pilots quickly activated their AWG-9 radars, searching for F-35 Adir aircraft operating somewhere inside Iranian airspace. With its long-range detection capability, the AWG-9 was expected to replace the ground-based radar stations that had just been taken out of the network and help Iran regain control of the skies. But the AWG-9's own signal was immediately picked up by the passive sensors of the F-35 Adir. From beyond the pilot's visual range, two F-35s opened their internal bays and released two AIM-120 AMRAAM air-to-air interceptors. The entire sequence unfolded before the Iranian pilots could accurately determine where the opposing aircraft were. The two interceptors first followed an inertial flight path, activating their own radar only in the final moments before closing in on their targets at extreme speed. The Iranian pilots received their warnings only when the distance had already become too short to respond effectively. Two F-14 aircraft were lost one after another, forcing the remaining fighters to break formation and withdraw. In less than 10 minutes, Iran had lost several key radar systems, along with the fighter response sent to close the gap in its air defense network. A corridor deeper into its territory now stood open before the F-35I Adir squadron. Taking advantage of this newly created opening, four F-35I Adir aircraft moved farther into Iranian airspace. Data from sensor fusion continuously updated the locations of command centers, storage sites, and military facilities along the route. Once the aircraft reached the ideal launch range, four Rampage high-speed precision projectiles were released one after another from their internal bays, racing toward important military targets at speeds beyond Mach 5. Only minutes later, a chain of powerful impacts occurred almost simultaneously, disrupting several key command centers and logistics hubs. Just when the penetration corridor appeared to be fully secure, the situation took an unexpected turn. A backup radar network that Iran had quietly positioned earlier suddenly came online after remaining silent for several minutes. It had not joined the effort to track the Delilah drones, nor had it supported the Bavar 373 batteries during the earlier engagement. Instead, it waited until the F-35I Adir formation had moved deep enough into the area before sending out its signal. On the warning display of one Adir, a target lock symbol suddenly appeared. But instead of pulling back immediately, the pilot stayed composed and used the EOTS system to locate the source of the transmission. Only seconds later, a Spice 1000 guided munition was released from the internal bay. Using an optoelectronic guidance system combined with GPS, it glided with precision toward the radar site that had just revealed itself. The impact that followed engulfed the radar complex, clearing the corridor once again for the F-35I formation. Realizing that important sites were being hit one after another, Tehran chose to shift from defense to retaliation. Tactical missile units began receiving orders to prepare launches toward Israel, a sign that the confrontation was moving beyond the limits of a standard air operation. Immediately after completing their mission, the F-35 aircraft turned back and began leaving Iranian airspace through the corridor they had already established. But this time, the remaining air defense network responded all at once. Sayyad 4B interceptors were launched in rapid sequence, creating several defensive zones in an attempt to block the Israeli aircraft from withdrawing. At the same time, the two remaining F-14 Tomcats accelerated from behind and began closing the distance. Using the shrinking gap between the two sides, one F-14 moved close enough to attempt a short-range engagement. The confrontation was no longer only a contest between radar systems and passive sensors. Now it depended on the pilot's reactions in a matter of moments. The F-35 pilot immediately maneuvered away while using the helmet-mounted sighting system to lock onto the target without needing to point the aircraft's nose directly at it. The Adir opened its internal bay and released a Python 5 interceptor. With its wide-angle targeting capability and advanced infrared seeker, the missile followed the maneuvering F-14 and reached its target. Moments later, a bright flash appeared in the sky, bringing the pursuit to an end. The remaining F-14 had no choice but to abandon the chase and return to base. Meanwhile, the F-35I squadron quickly left the danger zone, crossed the border, and returned safely with no reported losses in the simulated scenario. In one brief campaign, Israel opened a corridor through the Bavar 373 network, disabled several important radar systems, overcame the fighter response, and reached strategic targets. But the biggest question still remains. What allowed the F-35I Adir to carry out such a complex chain of operations? What truly makes the Sky Ghost stand apart is not its size, but the technology hidden inside it. At first glance, the F-35I Adir is not the biggest fighter in the sky. It is nearly 16 meters long, can reach around Mach 1.6, and has a combat radius of more than 1,100 kilometers. With aerial refueling, it can carry out missions far beyond its usual range. The F-35I can be compared to a small dagger with the reach of a spear. It moves quietly, closes the distance, and acts before the opponent has enough time to respond. The Adir's greatest advantage is its fifth-generation stealth design. Its airframe shape and internal weapons bays greatly reduce radar reflections, giving opposing systems only a very short window to detect and track it. It is not truly invisible, but it behaves like a shadow that briefly appears under a spotlight before fading away again. That makes any attempt to intercept it far more difficult. But the most important feature is sensor fusion. The AN/APG-81 AESA radar, DAS infrared sensors, EOTS targeting system, and electronic signal detection equipment constantly gather information and combine it into one clear battlefield picture. Older aircraft often require pilots to collect information piece by piece. The F-35I gives its pilots something closer to a full view of the chessboard. This allows targets to be found faster, threats to be understood sooner, and decisions to be made before the other side can react. That advantage becomes even more powerful when combined with a flexible set of systems. Delilah can confuse and overload radar coverage. The AIM-120 AMRAAM can engage targets beyond visual range. Rampage can reach important strategic sites. Spice and Python 5 handle threats that appear later in the mission. Each system has its own role. But when they work together, the F-35I becomes more than just a fighter aircraft. It turns into an airborne command platform capable of reconnaissance, coordination, electronic operations, and precision engagement within a single mission. Even though this simulated scenario shows the F-35I Adir placing heavy pressure on Iran's air defense network, real operations are far more complex. No single fighter aircraft can overcome an entire country by itself. The distance from Israel to targets deep inside Iranian territory is more than 1,500 kilometers. That means such missions would almost always require aerial refueling, real-time intelligence, electronic support, and close coordination between different forces. Iran also does not depend only on the Bavar 373. It has several layers of air defense, backup radar networks, interceptor aircraft, and the ability to respond with long-range systems or through regional allied groups such as Hezbollah or the Houthis. This means that any major aerial campaign could quickly grow into a much wider regional confrontation. Still, this scenario reveals an important truth about modern warfare. The advantage no longer belongs only to the side with more aircraft or more firepower. It belongs to the side that detects threats first, shares information faster, and makes decisions sooner. In today's operational environment, information can be just as valuable as firepower, and sometimes even more valuable. The F-35I Adir represents this new approach. It carries not only precision systems, but also a powerful network of sensors and the ability to process information while still in the air. Its real strength comes from the combination of stealth, awareness, and precision. That is what truly defines the power of this aircraft. And now the question is for you. If one squadron of F-35I Adir fighters equipped with systems like Delilah, Rampage, Spice, AIM-120 AMRAAM, and Python 5 could create this level of pressure in a simulated scenario, which system impressed you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments.